So let's get started then. We call this December 4th, 2025 meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee to order. It is 1:01 p.m. Aaron, would you do a roll call for us?
Yes, Member Keegan.
Present.
Member Alimi.
Present.
Member Murad.
Present.
Member Duber for Member Lindemood.
Here.
Member Jager.
Here.
I believe Member Reed for Member Boland.
Here.
Thank you. Member White.
Here.
Member Coy.
Here.
Member Kohlhaas.
Here.
Member Rudolph.
Here.
And Member Babb.
Here.
Hey, you have quorum.
100%, that's great. Okay, could you also do the public involvement announcement for us?
Of course. Welcome to the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Public comments are welcome and encouraged with 3 minutes given to each speaker. After the committee discusses each item, members of the public will be invited to comment. Housekeeping items for virtual attendees, please keep your cameras off unless speaking. For those attending by phone, press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Aaron. I'm noticing because we're in a different room today, because our other typical room is getting some AV updates. I noticed that I can see the back of my head online. So yes, I am balding for everyone. Should we move over there so that we?
This room right here from us next. Oh, sure.
Yeah, let's move over to there. Member White and I can migrate a little bit.
I don't know, the back of my head is a better view than.
Okay, there we go. Now I won't be quite so self-conscious as I see the back of my head every time I look at my screen. So next we'll jump in our agenda to the agenda itself. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
To approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Member Babb, seconded by Member White. Are there any changes that are needed to the agenda? Hearing no changes, are there any objections to approving the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next, do we have a motion for approving the November 6th, 2025 meeting minutes?
I move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Member Kolas, seconded by Member Jager. Are there any changes needed to the minutes? Okay, are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the November 6th, 2025 minutes are approved. Now we'll move into our action items on our agenda. First action item 5A is the 2050 MTP Amendment 2. Who from staff? Okay, take it away.
Hello. So before you have 2050 MTP Amendment number 2. Staff requests that the Technical Advisory Committee review the changes and then recommend to the Policy Committee to have them released for a 45-day public comment period. Within this MTP or within this update, there are 3 changes. The first is an update to the TIP NHS number 1 project, Seward Highway O'Malley Road to Diamond. This was based on a change that the PC made in October to the TIP description. So we are now matching the MTP description to the TIP description for the 27 to 30 TIP. So that's item number 1. To go along with that amendment, we did update the project cost table 13. We do show that we are still considerably fiscally restrained or constrained after adding that 24 million to the cost and revenue. And then the additional changes for this amendment are to add 2 projects that the MOA is seeking grant funding for, Rural and Tribal Assistant Pilot Program Grant. These are considered CAT-X projects, so we do have to put them into the MTP. We figured amending it now to get those in, so when they get the funding, they can start off the ground running instead of waiting for that amendment. And so those projects were added to the project table. They were also scored to keep consistent with the rest of the projects. Although the scoring obviously wouldn't have bubbled up to the top with the rest of them because the MOA is seeking funding. They do need to be in the MTP, so we are adding them in there. And they are at the end of the complete streets list. And then the other amendment was just, again, updating that the description in the table. So I can answer any questions if you'd like.
Did it amend the cost estimate or just the description for the Seward Highway Amend?
It was just the description. Mhm.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead.
Chair, I'll just add a little bit of comment to say I appreciate all of AMAT's help and support to get these 2 life safety access road projects included in the amendment. This was an effort as a result of our long-range planning group convening various stakeholder departments across the MOA, including fire department and Office of Emergency Management, where we've looked at all the various roadway needs for life safety access improvements. And these 2 projects, including Mountain Air Drive, were some of the highest identified in the prioritized list. And we are actively working on grants, and we have applications in, so we're just waiting to hear back. So thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you for the additional information.
Perfect. Also, I know that we are going to be having an updated MTP coming out soon. Do we think there will be any more amendments prior to that? Do you have thought about that? Do you have anticipation?
It's hard to say. The new one won't be out till likely 2028 or till 2028. So there's potential in those 2.5 years. But as of looking at it now, this is what we have.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any members online? I'm signed in, so I'm trying to manage that too, but feel free to speak up if anybody online, any committee members online want to say something or ask a question. Seeing no more from the committee, then we'll go ahead.
Sandra, just really quick, you said that the scoring, these projects were scored, were the scores included in the materials? I'm sorry, I missed.
No, they weren't included in the materials. We scored them just to keep consistent because all the rest of them, but because they're seeking money and it seems like it's going to happen, they need to go in anyway. So they went to the very bottom of the table, just to kind of indicate that they don't flush out the same as the rest of them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And we did include the federal performance areas for what was really impactful for these. So not necessarily the scoring, but what would have scored for these. So the safety, the infrastructure for both of them. Rhiannon, sorry, for the record, Rhiannon Brown with AMATs.
Okay, thanks, Rhiannon. Okay, let's go to public comment. Are there any comments from the public? If you're online and like to comment, raise your hand. I'll call on you. I don't see anybody so far and no one in the room, it looks like. Okay, then we will move to what is the will of the committee?
I will move to recommend to the policy committee that the 2025 MTP with amendments number 2 be released for a 45-day public comment period.
Okay, 2050?
2050,
Okay,
sorry.
perfect.
Second.
Okay, moved by member Kohlhoff, seconded by member Bab. Are there any discussion on the motion? Or any amendments? Okay, hearing none, are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved unanimously. Let's move on then to item 5B. 2023 to 2026 funding program amendment number 4. And is this one yours, Aaron?
Yeah, this will be me. Hi, everybody. Aaron Youngan-Hiland. I'm the Executive Director of AMATS. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I'm homesick, so I figured I'd be staying at home instead of sharing my germs with everybody. So before you is tip amendment number 4. We're making some changes to the program in a number of different ways. As my voice is kind of going out, I'm not going to be able to talk about every change, so I'm just going to highlight some major ones. Table 2 in the roadway, one of the big ones there is the Rabbit Creek Road Rehabilitation Project moved the $5 million in right-of-way funding in FY26 to beyond FY26 and moved the design funding from FY25 to 26 and reduced it to $750,000. So that's just a requirement to keep the project moving forward. Then we have a new project, the L and I Street Rehabilitation. So this was originally a pavement replacement project in Table 6, but it was moved into Table 2, Complete Streets, due to the increase in project scope. We've had discussions about this project a couple of times now, so you're just now seeing the action taken to update it in the tip based on those discussions. Let's see, next, Table 3, non-motorized. One of the big ones here is the Fish Creek Trail project is moving to beyond FY26. We had already kind of talked about this, but unfortunately, that's just where we're at with the project, just trying to keep that moving forward. So we've already accounted for that in the 27 through 30 tip, and this is just updating it for the 26 fiscal year. The active transportation pavement replacement pot of funding, we updated both the 25 and 26 funding. The 25 funding we updated to show that we did not obligate all $2 million that was originally shown in there. A lot of it is just there's limited staff time and resources, so we're not able to keep moving forward on a lot of different things, unfortunately, at this time. We did update the FY26 funding to reduce it from $723K to $450 for the Sitka Street Park project. However, after talking with Parks and Rec, it looks like we need to go ahead and remove that $450K for design efforts, as the Municipal Parks and Rec is not going to use AMATS funding for the Sitka Street Park project. Quite honestly, a lot of it is due to the time it takes to move forward on projects. They need that project immediately, and using federal funding takes too long. So that would be one of the changes I recommend to you all today. Also, we need to update the we'll update the memo, so it says 1.841 million, not 1,841 million. We added a new project into the non-motorized table, and this is the Minnesota Drive sidewalk repairs. This is another project that we've talked about a few times. It was in the table 6, but it's being moved into Table 3 due to the increase in project scope. Table 4, plans and studies. We'll update that in the memo as well to say studies instead of study. The AC corridor plan is being moved from FY26 to FY29. This is another one that was talked about just based on the limited resources at the municipality of Anchorage and the Department of Transportation. We are not able to get that project started in FY26, and so it's FY29 at this point. Congestion mitigation, air quality. There's some pretty exciting projects here. The first is a new project, the Downtown Transit Center. AMATS and DOT are working together to try and use some of the state CMAQ funding for this project, about 22.5 million, sorry, of funding for this project. So the request is in to see if we can use that funding. I will let you know if that request is not approved and we aren't able to use the funding, or only a portion of the funding becomes available, then staff's recommendation is to use AMATS funding to finish that project and get it moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that and let you know what happens on that. And then there are 2 new projects added in here based on working with Transit Department, the Transit Technology Modernization Project, and the Anchorage Ride Fare Collection Upgrade Project. Okay, next we have the Table 6. We've talked about these updates. This is just the IL Street and then the Minnesota Drive project. Table 7, there's some updates here for HSIP. The biggest one is, the 2 big ones that I want to note, the Anchorage flashing yellow arrow, the utilities construction is moving to beyond FY26. And so we capture that as part of the 27 through 30 tip. And then I will need to make a correction here or an update to what it says for the HSP 0021 Old Seward Highway Industry Way, 120th Avenue. That project is not being removed as requested by DOT. What happened is the funding is moving from FY26 to FY27. And because there's no funding left in the tip, that automatically removes the project. So what I need to do is update that description and let people know that that funding is moved to 27. That project has not stopped. It is still moving forward. So I apologize for any confusion there. Next table is table 8. There's a bunch of minor changes here for the NHS projects. Some projects were moved based on the request from DOT. I believe these are the stage 1s of projects that are already underway. They've been completed or they're being folded into the primary portion of the project, so they're no longer needed. And then some general updates. One of the big ones here is the Seward Highway project, adding $5 million in for FY26 for design funding, and then adjusting the overall total project cost. And then lastly, let's see, we've got the table 10. There's a few things happening here. The University Lake Extension project is moving the funding from FY26 or 25 to 26. And then we have a couple of new projects. We have the Rabbit Creek at 140th Avenue drainage improvements. This is one of the ones that the Muni is seeking a grant for. And then we have the 2 new projects that Rhiannon talked about, the Atelier Life and Safety Access Road and the Potter Valley Life and Safety Access Road. Both of those are being added to the tip as well. And one thing I'll note lastly here is the implementation grant for Burgaw Street Safety Corridor improvements. We are updating the project description based on some communication with USDOT and FHWA about lane reductions not being eligible for this funding source. So staff is bringing this forward to you all. The recommendation is to release this for a 45-day public comment period. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Yeah,
Mr. Chair, I do have some. I have a couple to go through, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, but Aaron did catch some of the ones that I've already had identified earlier to him during our briefing. Let's see. This one is just a question on the Downtown Transit Center. It says utilities and construction for FY26. I'm just looking at that in relationship to the 3rd Avenue reconstruction project, E to Gamble, I believe, and just looking at it as a coordination item. If, if there's driveways or circulation that would be better supported from the work that we're going to be doing on the roadway corridor, because we had contemplated turning a 1-way into a 2-way roadway. So just as we move forward, it's mostly just a comment that we really need to get that 3rd Avenue project underway, so that I think it would be a good companion project with the transit center, assuming that's still on 3rd Avenue as far as the location. And let's see, he caught the one on 120th Avenue, so that's great. And just lastly, on the table 10, the Burgaw Street project, we do not wish to reduce the total project cost. We would like to retain the full original project cost amount. So that was something that I did confirm with the project manager. And that's all my comments.
Okay, thanks, Linda. So on the item here where it said reduced FY26 funding for that Burgaw Street corridor project, you would like that not removed for 26?
Correct. And then also the total project cost would just be completely retained, so it would not be reduced by the 1.377.
And is that grant funding or is that, where's that, what's that
The
funding?
total project cost is includes the grant, the SS4A grant, and our match amount.
So are there any implications, Aaron, with that 1.377 million, if that was no longer removed from the tip?
No, it looks like it was just an error, maybe a miscommunication on what needed to change for this project. So I'll confirm with Melinda and Tanya after we're done here today and just make sure that I have everything correct. But it sounds like there's no reduction in any aspect of the Burgaw Street one. So the only thing would be changing is updating the project description. And because that's all grant funded, they already have the grant and they're not going over their grant amount. It's still fiscally constrained.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Melinda. Do we have other questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah,
Go
quick
ahead.
question for Aaron. We noticed today that some of the projects, the match was incorrectly stated and who was paying the match. Is that something we can fix after public review or something we need to try to get on there now?
It would be nice to know that now. Do you know what projects you claim are incorrect?
I know both Spinard projects are incorrect in there. It shows that the MOA is paying 100% of the match. It's a split between the state and the municipality. And then I didn't go through and look at all of them to see if that issue carried through, but any arterial should have the split match. It seems like that's actually been incorrect for a while.
I was looking at this very same thing. I was like, should I bring this up or?
We've I just need somebody to tell me what it's supposed to be because I keep getting mixed messages on what it is. So if you guys have errors that you notice, can you please note them and send them over and we can include them as part of the memo to the policy committee?
Yeah, absolutely. We've sent them to James and you should be able to forward them on to you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Alex. Are there other questions or comments from the committee?
Just a general question, maybe for DOT overall. I'm noticing a lot of funding moving into subsequent years, and just wondering how things are going with staffing and everything. If it's a result of staffing shortages or other things going on, or if it's just a natural progression of the funding cycle.
I can take first swing at that one. It's probably a combination of things. It's really project dependent, but there is a large amount of vacancies and staff changing that have delayed projects. And then currently we have a lot of staff that's been pulled off projects working on the West Coast disaster relief as well. So it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things. And then projects hitting typical problems that are slowing down the projects as well, permitting issues, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I do have a few questions. So on table 3, when you had mentioned about the Sitka Street project, and that being removed, is that what this is saying already, or does something need to change in addition to what this is saying?
We need to change it in addition to what it's saying. So basically we would remove all the funding for the non-motorized pavement program in 26.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'm making a few notes of things that when we make a motion, we should do the Burgaw, we should do the Sitka Street project portion. The other one that for the downtown transit center, it says added 25 million. Had you said 22.5 million?
It's
Okay.
22.5 million in federal and then it's 2.5 million in match. So it's 25 million total.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good.
Real quick, there was one thing I wanted to mention, just so everybody is fully aware of it. If you look at the tip tables themselves, you may notice that we are under-programmed. So there is a significant amount of money that we're not anticipating obligating this federal fiscal year. It's probably about $21 million or more at this point, just because of project delays that continue to mount, year after year, and they're growing. So, we'll be talking about FY25 and how much we didn't obligate in that year. And so it's just kind of compounding. I do want to just remind people, we don't lose the money. We just have to obligate it in a future year. So you'll probably be seeing some recommendations for staff on what to do with that funding as we move forward with this current and next fiscal year.
Perfect, thanks, Aaron. And it looks like there's a request online that speakers identify themselves as we speak. So I'll try to call on people by name so that you don't have to just say your own name. This is, Brad. Let's see. So a few other questions that I have. Are there any changes in this that are not aligned with the recent 2027 to 2030 tip conversations that we've had?
Not that I'm aware of. I think everything is in alignment with where we're at with that. Some of the changes we're making are because of the 26 through 27 tip discussions that we had, specifically the AC corridor plan, that kind of stuff. So everything's in alignment as far as I know.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I had another general comment or question about.
Go ahead, Bab.
Sorry, me, Lisa Bab, for the record. Another question about table 7 and just we have some proposed changes here, but I know that there's a few projects in table 7 that may be changed, their scope or their budget may be changed due to some changes regarding like lane drops and things like that, the new policies about lane drops and other scope impacts possibly. And is that something that we should be thinking about during this amendment, or are we going to be looking at future amendments for those projects? I'm just curious where some of those projects stand. Specifically, just to pick one project, the Northern Lights HSIP project.
Thoughts from DOT?
I was gonna say it might be a future amendment, just because the financial plan for HSIP hasn't been approved yet. And so we're still waiting for that approval. And again, I think it's largely tied up. We've got a lot of staff tied up on the West Coast.
Okay.
And so I think the HSIP financial plan has to be approved by the commissioner. And then once that's approved, then we'll know kind of the scope and scale of the projects that get to advance. Then we can start to tackle the scopes. So I think it'll probably not be done in time for this amendment.
Okay. And the financial plan for HSIP, it seems like that's usually done by this time of year. It's just because of all the delays. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay. That was Member White. Thanks.
Hey guys, there's a lot of folks who are online, so if you could say your name before you speak up, that would be great. There was a request in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Taylor. Yes, we are much more virtual today because of the smaller room, so we will do better with that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, let's move to public comments then. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comments on this item? Okay, let's see. So put your hands up if you're online. Looks like I see one. So Nancy, go ahead.
Yes, this is Nancy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. With regard to the 21.5 million that staff may be able to allocate to projects that aren't currently in the TIP, what would be the public ability to weigh in on that?
Yeah, that is a good question. Aaron, do you want to tackle that?
This isn't answering question session. This is comments from the public. So if a committee member has that as a question, they can ask it after we're done with public comments.
Okay, sounds good. So if you do want to use your 3 minutes now, Nancy, to provide your thoughts on that, that would be a good use of your public comment period.
Yes, thank you. I would hope that there would be a chance for the public to weigh in on some of the many projects that have been over the years pushed into the outer years, so that at an early kind of interactive stage of the decision making. Once it's on the draft HIP amendment, it seems like it's already locked in. So I would just hope that there would be some ways for the public to be invited into the early discussion process. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving back to the committee. And I guess the thing that I'll say is at this point, it's going out to public comment. This isn't final adoption. This is being recommended for release for a 45-day public comment period. So there will be opportunity for the public to weigh in. What is the will of the committee for this item?
I can take a stab at a motion, but I'm going to need,
Right at the top of the item 5B.
great, I'd be happy to hand it off to somebody who has that in front of them. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll make the motion that we recommend that this TIP amendment number 4 be released to the policy committee for public comment, the 45-day public comment period as amended based on the conversations today. So
Will it be helpful for us to list what those amendments are?
Sorry.
Okay, so Member White, yeah, recommended recommended to the policy committee that we release the 2023-2026 TIP amendment number 4 for a 45-day public comment period. And with the amendments we discussed, so let's list what those were as part of the motion. So I can provide some.
do we want to start by table? Because I think this is Ben White for the record. First one I had was Brigade, and then we got.
Okay, so yeah, Brigade. Not removing the funding.
Correct.
Fully removing Sitka Street from it.
There were some edits recommended by staff, just technical edits regarding the different amounts and match.
Staff technical edits is the number 3. And do we want to say anything about the arterials having split match? I mean, that get incorporated for any.
We need to provide
We need to provide that.
to AMAT so that they can update the table.
Following information from DOT.
So this is Ben White, DOT. I will make sure that we follow up with staff on the appropriate match breakdown before this goes to policy.
Okay, so we got a motion by Member White. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second by Member Babb. Is that clear enough for staff as to what that motion includes?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other discussion, amendments to the motion? And hearing none on there, are there any objections to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the next action item. Item 5C, the BPAC appointment. And this one looks like it's Emily.
Yes, hello everyone. Emily Weiser. I'm the non-motorized coordinator with AMAS. So you've heard us say several times over the past few months that we currently have 3 open seats on the BPAC. We've been advertising those to the public. One of those is the public member seat where you don't need an affiliation. One is a business organization seat. And one is a community or environmental organization seat. So we have received 2 applications for the public member seat. We went ahead and recommended one of those just as the first one received. But then at our BPAC meeting this week, the chair pointed out that she and another member are affiliated with organizations that would be qualified for that community or environmental organization seat. And both of them are currently in public member seats. So we have 2 applications, 1 open public member seat, but we were thinking we might as well move one of the current public members into that community environmental organization seat and allow 2 new public members to join the committee. We don't really have a policy one way or another on that, so you guys are more than welcome to recommend that or not as you see fit. But just in the interests of allowing more people to participate and contribute when they're interested, and also helping the BPAC meet quorum. We are not able to meet quorum at our last meeting because it's still a 6-member quorum, even with vacant seats. And let me just check my notes. I think that's all I wanted to mention. So both of the applications are before you in the materials. Like I said, we wrote the recommendation for one of them, but we thought could also consider recommending both of them and shifting one of the current members to the other seat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Are there questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead, Member Jager.
So my question was, if somebody gets shifted to an organizational membership, does the organization have to be consulted to see if they want that person as a representative?
I don't think we have a formal requirement for documenting that, but yes, the implication is that they are representing their organization on the committee. So I did ask both of them to just, if they need to check with their organization, since we don't have a formal process for that, it's pretty much up to them to say, yes, I'm authorized to represent my organization.
Good question. Other questions, comments? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, the recommended applicant is just because they turned in their application first.
Yes.
Is that typically how we select the candidates? Or is it typically through the resumes they submit?
It's probably not typical. They're both good candidates, and the second one came through the day that this agenda was due. So we had already gotten everything together and notified that first applicant that if they were able to attend, which I can't see the full participant list, but I don't think either of them were able to attend today. So it was kind of a last minute. Now we have 2 applicants, but yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Jim Jager, following up on that question. So how long was the application period open?
We didn't have a formal deadline, but we've been advertising this since I think June.
So there's been some.
It's been a while.
So
Yeah.
Interested parties have had plenty of time to respond.
Yeah, and it's always a challenge to get the word out.
Especially in summertime.
Right. And I don't mean to imply that the second candidate was in any way negligent or not on the ball in applying when they did. It's just, they happened to hear about it and they were interested.
There's not a deadline, right?
There's no deadline.
It strikes me the real question here is, were there a bunch of other people who just didn't get a bite at the apple, but if they've had all summer, if they were going to take a bite, they would have done it. We've got, in addition to whatever qualifications they have, they've demonstrated we actually have 2 interested bodies.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Member Reed.
Just reviewing the applications and the resumes, it seems like the not selected candidate is maybe the stronger candidate in my opinion. They already do a lot of public advocacy, year-round bike rider, though they were both regular bike riders. I personally don't know that selecting candidate based off of application order is the best way to do it, but maybe selecting them based off of the resumes themselves. Is there an opportunity to recommend one over the other? Or?
Yeah, you guys can recommend anything you'd like. It's an open, clean canvas for you.
A few of the options would be to recommend one. You could recommend the one that was suggested by staff. We could recommend the other one, or we could recommend both and have one of the current
Positions like,
slide over to, what is the position that they would slide to?
It's the community or environmental organization seat. And Aaron has his hand up in case he has a procedural.
Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we don't select applicants based on when their application came in. We select it based on the actual application and resume they submit. However, there was only one selected at the time that we were getting ready to post the agenda. So we had selected Sam, and then another one came in. So I just want to make sure that that is very clear. We didn't select Sam just because his application came in first.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
and effectively, they're really selecting both with the little sleight of hand, if you want to call it, of moving some positions around.
Yeah, I could see with the fact that the agenda was about to go out the door, got a new recommendation or new application.
And given that there's no closing date, you can't hold it against them.
Board Member Reed?
Just based off, there's no guarantee that we can put them into each position, right? That the organization will agree that they can go in that position. So you still want to select the top candidate for the public one they apply to, and then attempt the other, in my opinion.
So my assumption
Go ahead,
would be
Member
that,
Bab.
or sorry, Lisa Bab for the record. My assumption would be that we can make recommendations to the policy committee about potentially all three positions. And that the organizational question should be settled by the time it makes it that far. And I did also have one question. I think you might have said this already, but how long has it been since BPAC had a full committee?
We have not had a full committee since before this year, and prior to that, all the subcommittees were on hiatus for a while due to AMAT staffing shortages. And so it's been, I don't know exactly, but it hasn't met as a full committee for a couple of years.
Okay, other questions or comments from staff or from the committee? Okay, let's move to the public comment. What? Oh, okay, go ahead, Member Leamy.
Yeah, I just want to know, is AMAT staff aware of the preference of the BPAC? Does BPAC have any reference between the two candidates?
That's a great question. Oh, the chair of the BPAC is online with her hand up. Oh,
Okay, we'll let you answer that then, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Heiduke. I serve as the chair of the BPAC and appreciate the conversation. When we had our meeting on Monday night, we were able to see these two applicants since they're part of your agenda. And we thought both candidates were qualified and didn't have a preference between the two. And that's why we looked at which seats are available, understanding that my position and another members, we could slide into the community or environmental seat. We're like, both of our organizations support that. And so it really is just, choosing one of us to make that happen. So if you all recommend one of our current public members sliding into the community environmental seat, we can confirm those details for the policy committee to review. And the BPAC would recommend that you recommend both of these applicants to move forward for the BPAC because we think they are both eligible. Personally, I don't know them. I looked at their resume and think they'll bring a lot of good perspective and different perspective and experience to the committee. So I would like to have them participate. especially because we are volunteers and it is difficult to reach quorum. We had 5 members, you know, it's a majority, but it wasn't 6. And so another conversation to pick up would be looking at our bylaws and seeing those quorum numbers, but we'll have to come back around to this committee and the policy committee for any changes regarding that. But we have members who want to engage. We want to be able to take action and make recommendations your way, and think this is a good first step to get there.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. While you're still on, which organization do you represent, and who is the other member, and which organization do they represent?
Sure. So I would represent NeighborWorks Alaska, which is a community-based organization, and Diana Rhodes also participates and could represent the Anchorage Park Foundation as an environmental/community organization. So both of us, I'm the chair and Diana is the vice chair, and we both said, oh, either of us could move forward with that. So we're just talking with Emily and Aaron about who and how to move that forward.
Okay, go ahead, Member Bev.
Just one comment, I guess. If we do recommend that somebody slides into one of those 2 positions, I might also suggest to staff and to BPAC that they provide the policy committee with an idea of who moves into which position, assuming that we make a motion. So.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that does, the question is, do we make a suggestion as the TAC, or do we just let our opinion be known that we would like that, and let that work itself out through the policy committee? It probably does need to happen at the policy committee to have specificity, but right here it doesn't necessarily. So, okay, are there any public comments? I think that's the point that we were at. Any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing no hands online or anyone in the room, what is the will of the committee?
I guess I'm gonna take a move.
Okay.
A run at it here. I move that the committee recommends both applicants, subject to the BPAC telling us what position changes they're going to have, so that we know which current public member will become a member, an organizational member.
Okay, motion by member Jagger. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by member Reed, member Boland. Are there any amendments or conversation, discussion on the motion? Okay, having no conversation, are there any objections to the motion? Okay, hearing no objection, that motion is approved. So that puts us through all of our action items. Thanks, everyone. That's been a lot more efficient and moving through things this meeting than some of the past ones. So let's move on to the information items. Item 6A, the AWWU Water Master Plan Update Presentation.
This is Julie Justin. With your permission, I would like to show my screen with our presentation.
Go for it.
Should we sit here?
Okay, we can see the screen. And so the presenters are Julie Jessen, it sounds like, and I see 2 staff that came and sat up at the table. Introduce yourself and then.
Okay, I'm Todd Carroll with Anchorage Water Wastewater Utility. I'm the project manager for the utility and the capital program manager.
And I'm Anson Moxness, the project manager for HDR, consultant, the main writer of the master.
Okay, perfect. Take it away.
All right, so we just wanted to come before the committee. We've been out in a public comment period for the master plan online open house, and wanted to just go over a high level overview of the plan. And so talk about the plan, purpose, and the schedule and some things today. So the next slide, Julie, is the purpose of the master plan. As a lot of you know, it plans. We're looking at how we effectively, efficiently operate our system. This is specific to the water utility side. We also do a wastewater master plan, but this is about the water utility side. And we're looking at a 20-year planning horizon for capital improvements for the most part when we look at these plans. This is also operational improvements and level of service, maintenance needs for the community. Go ahead, Julie. So our current system, we have about 55,000 customers. That's not people, that's connections. And 2 treatment plants, several wells, and many, many miles piped and hydrants all over Anchorage from Girdwood to Eklutna. There are several other certificated systems within similar service area, but we're the largest one in the state and the city. Right now we're running at about 23 million gallons average per day demand and 50 million gallons peak, which truthfully about a decade or 2 ago was a little higher for the peaking demand. It's moderated a little bit. So when we're looking at the plans, Anson has helped us a lot with looking at projections, modeling population projections, what's coming up with different changes in the system, changes in water use. You know, there's a lot of low flow shower heads and things over the last, several decades that have changed consumption, personal consumption, regulatory requirements. Of course, some of the heavy hitters there recently have been like PFAS and other things. Go ahead, Julie. And with all that in mind, some of the projects, that we have a certain amount of focus on, that we have examples for where we're going with repair and replacement are in Girdwood and water reservoir refurbishments. We're looking at every couple of years having to do refurbishments on the tanks that are around town. And then the continual pipe replacements that used to be wood stave pipe. Two decades ago, we were replacing that had that spiral wire on them. Most of that's gone. There's probably a little bit left. But now we're on to more like cast iron pipe and ductile iron pipe being the ones that get replaced with PVC plastic pipe for the most part. And a lot of facility work. Truthfully, we've transitioned. A lot of our facilities are aging, and that's where a lot of the work is. Peak demand, I spoke about that a little bit, specifically in certain areas. We're looking at some pinch points and whatnot, mitigating some of those. So, for example, in Girdwood and also in Eagle River, we're looking at water supply improvements in Girdwood and more like tank and storage in Eagle River over the next, 5 to 10 years. In the past decade, there was a lot of system optimization where we have a lot of very pressure zones because of our elevation change. And so we have a lot of pressure regulating stations. We did a lot of system optimization to minimize some of those facilities. There's quite a few. We have over 200 remote facilities. So this is a sampling of a list that we just thought we'd show you of some of them that might be of interest if you haven't reviewed the plan for AMATs that might be of interest to the committee, but in no order, but in the 1 to 6 year outlook. That's these, and they're the larger ones. There's other smaller ones in the plan, but probably not of consequence. But these are some of the larger ones. I'm not going to read every one of them, but for example, the North Airport water main, the one on the bottom, it's like an alignment along Point Warrenzoff along the road on the backside to bring redundancy around the backside of the instead of under the runway as one of the projects for how we supply water. And then I heard a lot on Braga. I'm not sure, but for example, we have a Braga project that maybe there's some coordination potential there. We just had one phase of Braga that was wrapping up this year, and there's more to come. So that's what we're looking for, and we wanted to bring to your attention is, of course, any opportunities for collaboration and coordination on some of these projects. That's really the big probably hit for this group, is to look through those projects.
Are there staff that you typically coordinate with regards to your projects and transportation projects?
Could I turn that question to you? I mean, that's a great point. And, you know, truthfully, I'm not sure who should be maybe the one we would follow up with just to make sure they're, you know, we've contacted you, but we have, I don't think we've formally heard back, right, Julie, on any comments from this group?
Don't believe so.
Sorry, I had to stop sharing to put my microphone back on. Julie Jessen with HDR. We have heard from Muni Planning. We have not heard from DOT or AMATS specifically, although Aaron has been aware of this this plan and this presentation that we wanted to do with you. As Todd mentioned, I think the main emphasis is are there areas of coordination? And so, yes, who are those right people to talk with between the utility and AMATS or other agencies so that we can avoid rework in the end? And Todd knows the example that I put forward is Elmore Road a number of years ago, came back in, lovely repave, lovely improvements to Elmore. And a couple of years later, the utility came in and did a big water main replacement and had to tear that up. So looking at the schedule within the plan, knowing as you guys just went through that things get pushed out and subject to change based on funding, are there those opportunities where we can do a better job coordinating between the utility and AMATS?
Yeah, that is a good question. One question I have on that, is it better to do the utility first and then the road comes over afterward? Is it better to do them concurrently so we know we've got road work, let's do the utility at the same time? I'm sure that it's not better to do the road first and then the utility, because if you're ripping up the road, which is, you know, what's on the top. So I guess of the other two, is there a priority preference?
This is Todd Carroll. So most of the projects we're into now are not expansion type projects. They're R&R. They're already in the ground. Some of these that we're talking about might be a new pipe, but most of them in the plan, for the most part, unless they're in a different category we're not really talking about today with grants and things, are about the existing system areas. So it'd be existing roads, right, that we're already down and below. So it'd be a lot of opportunities where maybe there's, in my mind, improvements that are being looked at for pedestrian improvements, trail improvements that would go right on top of 30th Avenue. I have no idea if that would have touched this group, but for example, there were improvements there and we had a pipeline right under it that we worked on together between groups. You know, it's just making sure that we don't go in a couple of years later, tear it right back up on either end, right? So that's why we just listed some of the ones that had a little larger alignment maybe, but there are shorter ones too. But we don't want to, cut across International Airport Road, even though it's a small cut right after somebody just repaved it. That, you know, from my perspective.
And this is Julie with HDR again. One thing I will point out on this particular slide is that downtown to Kincaid pipeline right of way. I noticed in your plan you do have conversation about the AC couplet in downtown. And this is something that might benefit from a little bit more coordination. This downtown to Kincaid pipeline is not something the utility, I think, and Todd, you can correct me, is looking at in the super near term, but acquiring the right of way itself is important, as you guys know, for any infrastructure improvements. Again, something that we want to flag, that you know what the utility is doing and the utility knows what AMATS is doing.
And we do have several touch points I'd like to add, that every time we do a project and it's going out, it's going for review and coordination to the various groups, even DOT. But this is an early opportunity in my perspective, because we're talking about projects that aren't budgeted yet even, right? And when we might phase them. So if there's a project at year 10 on one side and year 7 on the other, try and work together on those.
Good. Any other questions before we have that continue on the presentation?
Gonna be pretty short after this, just so you know. I think we hit.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can continue on and then we can have them after.
Julie, do you want to go through this part or do you want me to keep going?
You are more than welcome to do so, Todd.
Okay, so the online open house, even though it says it went through November 14th, it's still online. The small group presentations, that's what we're doing. We're wrapping up this month for the most part, and we hope to then take in all the comments and through the end of the year and incorporate them into the final draft of the master plan that we hope to publish in the first quarter of 26. Yeah, so we're here to hear from anyone now or in the next, hopefully, month of anything that we missed that we really should know about. But this plan really is an evolving document through the years that sure, it's printed on paper, but we work through it and projects move around. Not really. Yeah, that's what we had. Do you have any questions?
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Go ahead.
Comments,
Member
questions?
Kohlhaas? Questions?
Member Kohlhaas, thank you for the presentation. This is great. I was reached, I think Brandon Taylor had communicated that AWWU had reached out to him and asked for an opportunity to come and present. What I had suggested is that maybe we get together with various like our development services and planning, and then all get in a room and have one big group presentation. That was kind of what I had in mind. I think that would be great. The other thing is, yes, early, because we do project by project coordination, but to really program funding between capital program entities, you really need to look at it earlier. It's hard to be responsive to start finding money when somebody's already at more of a 35-65% design level. So one thing that we could do is start looking at we have our public facing project dashboard that has all of our projects in our capital program, in our GIS, format that we can take a look at. And there might even be an opportunity to say, hey, can we data dump this into a format that you could overlay, and then we could easily see what that, if there's projects that we have in our future coming up in relation to the AWWU projects. So that might be one thing to do, but certainly we'll look at it from the capital side, and then maybe you guys want to take a look at it as well and eyeball it. But yeah, this is great to have that type of early coordination.
I like the way you said easily seen.
I'm just like, hey, anything that I can see, put this layer on that layer, and then if we can see where they align, that gets us a place to start having that conversation. Not as easy as it might be said. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Member Kohlhaas. So as the director of PM&E that manages all of our projects at the city, it seems like you make the most sense from the city perspective to have kind of alignment with the projects versus AWU. Is there someone at DOT that's a good connection for projects? Is that yours, Luke?
I think Luke Boland, DOT Reconstruction Engineering. I got a note to check back with our utilities folks. Also, I think reach out to the folks over at ANC too, because there's some work going on in their vicinity, make sure they've had eyes on this as well. So.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question that I had is, are there any AMATS projects that we should have like incorporate or change based on what we're finding out from this? This like as we're looking at the tip and funding.
And Anson, you could potentially speak more, but I would like to add a point that we did look at existing plans to a certain degree. We always look at the other plans in the city and whatnot, but we not always seen everything. So, we did look for opportunities to mention.
Okay, so Member Bab?
And on that note, I just wanted to say thank you for giving the planning department a chance to review this plan. There is a lot in here of interest to us.
Okay.
Just due to the, the discussion about 10,000 homes in 10 years, infill projects, new development. So I think we do have a meeting set up individually with AWWU, or we were in the process of setting that up. And I think I'd like to go ahead and have that meeting, but I also would love to be involved in the larger meeting with development services and PM&E.
Yeah,
because this is all very, very directly related to our comprehensive plan and the implementation of that plan. So thank you again.
Okay, great.
Okay, Member Trigger?
So my only question is, are we only dealing with half of AWU here? There's the wastewater side, so we're talking about half of your water, which presumably is half of your pipes. Should both sides be considered at the same time?
So my right side of the brain is the water, left side's wastewater. I represent both. We're just not actively working on the wastewater management, wastewater master plan right now.
Okay. Well, the
But
wastewater
it's
master plan.
in contract.
Yeah.
HDR.
The wastewater master plan is starting as of about a month ago.
Okay. I guess my only real point was, if you're in for a dime, you might as well be in for a dollar. Let's get it all on the table.
So we, to your question, don't have updated master planning maps, but we have a master plan that's, what is it, 2014? I think was the last one for the wastewater side. So some of those projects have been done and some are out of date, and we'll be updating those as well. But we also have the capital improvement program that the utility holds with a 6-year outlook of projects. And to what Melinda was saying, it's always a great opportunity for the groups. I think that's a really good idea. And the state to come together and look at those 6-year projects to really focus on any that might be overlapping. I would think that would be a good meeting. And it's for water and wastewater.
Okay, perfect. Any other member questions or comments?
Just make yours simpler.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, super helpful. Are there any comments from the public? Looks like I see Anna Bozen online.
Hi, good afternoon. Anna Boson, DOT Regional Traffic and Safety Engineer. I put a comment in the chat. There are 2 pavement preservation projects listed within that timeframe, but also my more important comment is regarding traffic control and ensuring that the contract documents, when they're put out to bid, incorporate the new MUTCD requirements. It's going to be in effect mid-January. There's no grace period for that. And then PROWAG as well, which is the public right-of-way accessibility guide. Anytime there's paving involved, access ramps must be replaced. And so ensuring that those are incorporated into the project documents is really important. Thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Any other members of the public providing comments? Seeing other members of the public, thank you for coming again and for coordinating. And we'll move to the next presentation, 6B, Glen Highway Hiland Interchange Update. Like we'll swap out our presenters. So we'll just start by introducing yourselves and then dive in.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Galen Jones. I'm with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. And I'm the project manager on the Glen Highland Interchange Project.
And I'm Kelly Kilpatrick. I'm the project manager with Dow, partnering with Galen on the project.
All right, so we're here to give you a presentation today on the basically an update on the Glen Highway and Highland Road Interchange Project. Just a reminder, this is our second time presenting for AMATS on this project. The first time we talked more about background conditions, the main purpose of the project, the issues we're trying to solve, and went through our alternatives that we were analyzing. So we want to present to you today our preferred alternative that we're moving forward with in design. Next slide, please. So are you doing the slides right? Okay, thanks. Yeah, so a couple slides on the project area and just a brief overview about the project. So we're out in Eagle River, and this is what some people refer to as the South Eagle River exit. It's also confusing because that doesn't intersect with Highland Road. It's Eagle River Loop Road, but there's a bridge that goes across the Glen Highway at this location, and it connects to Eagle River Loop Road and up into Eagle River. So it's a heavily used interchange that hasn't been upgraded for many decades and is over capacity and not operating efficiently, which we'll show you in a couple slides. But a lot of facilities around in this area that need to be accommodated for solid waste services, the Anchorage Regional Landfill to the west, Eagle River High School to the east, and so on. Next slide, please. Those project purpose and objectives, we are trying to improve operations, the capacity of the interchange due to heavy congestion in the morning peak period. So that's that westbound to southbound movement coming out of Eagle River, the area, Walmart, Highland Road, that whole area, trying to get to Anchorage in the morning is heavily congested, not operating efficiently. And during the project, we also want to improve safety for non-motorized users, but of course for motorized users as well, but not very many documented major safety issues at this intersection in terms of crash history. Objectives wise, yeah, we already mentioned so issues with the queuing, enhance the highway merging onto the Glen Highway. Right now it's a single lane merge. It doesn't work very efficiently. It's at capacity. And then also we want to take the opportunity to do some bridge maintenance. Next slide, please. Just a reminder of the long queues. We have poor lane utilization here. There are 2 lanes in the westbound direction, but people knowing they have to turn left to get onto the Glen Highway as headed westbound, they all stack in a single lane, and it goes back sometimes in the morning, regularly in the morning over a mile, up to close to 2 miles. And so that's the issue we're trying to solve primarily. Next slide, please. So some constraints we're working with on the project. The bridge still has a lot of good life left in it. It has a 75-year design life right now, or it was designed with 75-year design life, but there's a couple decades left, we assume, in that design life. So we want to keep that existing bridge. So whatever designs we have need to accommodate the existing bridge cross section. So that's a fixed width and elevations, of course. And then we also want our design to accommodate a future bridge replacement project easily without having to tear up a bunch of the work. Additionally, we have non-motorized and transit facilities nearby, and we want to maintain those or enhance those. And we also want to make sure we address the traffic operational issues during that morning peak, as I mentioned before. Also overheight vehicle needs, if they can't go into the Glen Highway because they're overheight, we need to make sure to accommodate them up top at the interchange, and definitely address the solid waste services needs for their access vehicles. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Kelly, talk about the.
Thanks so much, Galen. All right, I think some folks did see this presentation last time where we did have some of our other alternatives, but our preferred alternative was the diverge-about. And so it's the diverging diamond with roundabouts, this intersection, and the volumes didn't quite warrant signals, so we're looking at roundabouts. We did take an incremental approach to get to this alternative. We really wanted to see, you know, that main movement, the westbound to southbound left. Lots of vehicles going through there, 2 miles, as Galen said, sometimes even back to Walmart, we're hearing from the public. So really this interchange is for that one movement, and then increasing that movement onto the highway, we want to make sure the highway can take that merge capacity. So we looked at things, how do we get them through faster, right? Because we don't want that long queue. Those alternatives still created problems with all the roadways, ramps intersecting into the interchange. So it wasn't allowing folks into the interchange. So that's why we went with the diverge-about. So this comprehensively improves the performance throughout the interchange. It's provides refuges for pedestrians. It doesn't require high-cost utility impacts. We're avoiding a water line. We're avoiding that 20-inch gas line that seems to hit every project in Anchorage in the Valley. Not this one. There's an overhead transmission line we're not hitting. We are purposely potentially relocating some dry utilities, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. There's reduced right-of-way donations. So we have that as a negative. Negative is such a strong word, but we've worked through it. It's going to be a donation, and there is a slight impact, but we're working with Solid Waste Services on that right-of-way or donation, and it's a positive thing. So that's good. It's going to be Alaska's first diverge-about. We have Glen Muldoon. I think most people were like, at first, but I think they've really embraced it, and we're hearing good things. And at our open house, we were getting great feedback from the public. We had great animations and really got good feedback. People left those meetings saying, thanks for the animations, because it really showed how they can get through. And I think people are pretty excited about it. And of course, during construction is probably going to be our biggest challenge of how we get this built and try to reduce. And that's really one of the true negatives.
I just want to point out too that, you know, when you look at a map of this, you're like, oh my gosh, this is really complicated. But when it's because you're looking at the entire thing all at the same time. When you're in a vehicle, you're just looking at one little spot.
Member Yeager?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. So we have a bicycle pedestrian route that moves from one side of the highway to the other side. And it's a relatively challenging route right now during high traffic times. What's this going to do to bikes and pedestrians on using the trail?
We have a couple slides for those. Okay. Great question. It's one of the main questions we're getting. So we are going to focus on that, right? It's a huge priority for pedestrian safety, whether it's non-motorized, on a bike, walking, whatever. So we are definitely focused on that. As here, existing transit and non-motorized facilities, it is a goal to enhance, maintain what's out there or enhance it where we can. So we are definitely coordinating with transit. We've gone to BPAC. We've met with several stakeholders and we're gaining feedback. Next slide. So when we first presented the diverge-about, this is that typical section at the bottom is the existing, it uses the existing bridge, which is about 55 feet wide. And so to retrofit it for a diverging diamond, we have a barrier down the middle to separate the opposing traffic. We keep that pedestrian pathway on the north side. We're actually narrowing that pathway up a little bit to give some room to the traveling lanes and provide that median barrier. But this, as you can see, if you can see the green, it's a little hard to see for some of us probably, but that green is the pedestrian route. And that's kind of one of the drawbacks, I think, for an interchange, having roundabouts is there's quite a bit of circuitous routing for pedestrians as they go through, like you were talking about, bicycles too, have to cross all those. So that's eight lanes of crossing. It's single lanes, which is better than two-way lanes. It's single lane directions. It's one more than exists today at 7. And so hearing the feedback, how do we shorten that route? How do we try to reduce those number of crossings? So if we go to the next slide, that's what we've been focusing on right now. And we're working with M&O utilities and statewide bridge to see how do we change this cross section using the existing bridge and try to reduce that routing. So looking at some of the other diverge-abouts that are lower 48, quite a few of them have pedestrian routing down the middle. We actually looked at this at Glen Muldoon. If that diverging diamond was together, the pedestrian routing would be down the middle. We have two separate bridges, so it appears it's just on one side. So pedestrian routing down the middle actually reduces our lane crossings to 6, and it shortens it from about 1,330 feet to 900 feet. So it's a lot. We want to get people the shortest distance. We don't want them to make crossings that aren't safe, that aren't there. So this is what we're looking at right now. That bottom section isn't completely set. We're trying to hold lane widths at 11 feet. We're playing with shoulder widths with that pedestrian walkway width, working with, again, M&O, how they plow that center median with the barriers there, how do they plow where they store. Luckily, it's a fairly short bridge. It's on a crest, so we do have water going off each side, but there are things that we have to think about. So we're still working through this. On the reason why we're working with utilities, the existing pathway right now has several conduits in it that have dry utilities, communication utilities. And so bridge is favorable, saying that we can take out that the utilidor or whatever that's in the sidewalk and we can relocate it. There's several ideas that we're thinking about, either put it under the bridge, which I think is preferred. We can route it into some of those new barriers. We can put different conduits. So we're working through that right now, and then we're going to present that with the utilities and see how they feel about us relocating their utilities. But that'll help us. And the one thing also is that Senate, we want to, by adding these barriers, we're adding weight to the bridge. So we're probably not going to raise the pedestrian path. It'll probably be just a whole paved deck basically for the bridge. Pedestrians will be at the same height, but we're still going to have those barriers. That just helps reduce weight. Did I miss anything?
Well, I just wanted to go back to Member Jagger's question, which we appreciate. Currently the routing follows the north side of the bridge, and then it crosses the southbound off ramp, and then it crosses the solid waste service entrance, and then it ties into the Glen Highway pathway. So we acknowledge it's a really important connection. What's nice about the diverge-about design is that it keeps that heavy traffic movement from the westbound to southbound. The proposed routing never has to cross that heavy movement either. So it's still generally following the same. And then just to reiterate what Kelly was saying, currently there are 7 lanes that have to be crossed by pedestrians. None of those have refuges in the middle. This actually reduces the lanes being crossed from 7 existing to 6. That 8 number is for the previous alternative. But now you have pedestrian refuges between those crossings. So they only have to cross one direction at a time. They get to look, focus on one direction of vehicles at a time. So from that standpoint, it is an improvement.
Kelly, back to me. So meeting with transit, we've working through each of the stakeholders here. So we have met with transit several times. They have a master plan that may be looking at changing some routings in the future. So there's some pretty decent discussions around that. So they have shared with us where they want, currently they would like one stop. And where they want it is kind of where we see a little orange or white dot there, the bus stop. So we're working on that quadrant, which is the northeast quadrant, and how we incorporate the circulation of buses going into there in relation to the park and ride. So that's something that we're working through. Some of the challenges are just how they circulate. There's a little bit of, it drops off to the north, so some topography. How many spaces we put in there. And of course, they've asked for some amenities. So they are looking to have a shelter, bench, trash cans, some pedestrian scale lighting. So all things we're gonna work through and see where we are when we move forward. It looks like we may be having the routing go through the roundabout, and as it gets onto the ramp, it'll actually have a slip lane into the bus stop is kind of how we're seeing. And that's just based on conditions of VFW. There's challenges sometimes that VFW isn't cleared in the winter, so we need to make sure they can continue to get back to the interchange, whether they're going north or south. So that's something we're working through.
And those facilities will be paid for by the department during the construction. And those are all amenities that don't exist currently.
Working with oversized vehicles, so Solid Waste Services we met with Alaska Trucking Association, and just got their general, I mean, a lot of projects that go through interchanges do meet with them and get reminded of the sizes of their trucks, what they need to do. So this is going to be treated the same as Glen Muldoon of any oversized vehicles that get permitted to use the interchange, they'll be able to go up and over. They can't go under. If there's any signs or bollards that we placed in there, I think you might have seen them on Glen Muldoon. We did put them there because it avoids the general public from trying to take that route. If it looks an apparent route that they could take in the winter, it'll be a reinforced concrete path that they can take just to make sure they can avoid the bridge and still get up and over. Removable bollards, removable signs, and also the roundabouts, typical roundabouts, they'll have reinforced truck aprons for all the movements. We show a movement there of the landfill if they wanted, looks like if they wanted to go to VFW. Anything else there?
No.
Next slide. Moving on to the landfill. So met with them. They gave us a tour of kind of how the operations. One thing that lined up, when you talk about lining up with master plans and stuff, they are working on their gate changes. So it was perfect timing. We met with them. And this gave us the opportunity because of the diverge about, it does kind of expand that footprint. It brings the roundabout slightly onto their area, but one thing working with M&O is we really want them to have a turnaround because of the roundabout feature. So into this new right-of-way, you can see there's that white kind of rectangular, triangular thing. We show a turnaround for plows to be able to turn around still within the future DOT right-of-way. And it also allows any vehicles to stop within the right-of-way and out of the roundabout if they're waiting at the gate. So the landfill is looking to relocate and have 2 gates, fencing, and since we are pushing back, they would slightly realign their access there to the north.
No.
I'll pass it back again.
All right, last slide. So just wrapping things up, talk a little bit about schedule and next steps. We had an open house previously or in winter 2025. We're continuing our stakeholder input, presenting at AMATS committees. So the alternative has been selected and we've begun design on that alternative. So we'll do a 95% review in the spring, and then we'll advertise this for construction in the fall to get construction bids and then build it in summer of 2027. And I did want to mention this is a federally funded project through the National Highway Performance Program, the NHPP program. Any questions?
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? I know we had some comments and questions earlier, so thank you for the presentation. Are there any comments from the public?
Oh, sorry, this is Bart. I just wanted to thank the project team and DOT for accommodating that transit stop. We had a good discussion last month, and I'm glad to see it's already been making the presentation that they're working on it. So just wanted to show my appreciation for them.
Okay, thanks so much, Bart. Any other members of the public? I guess Bart is speaking as a member of the committee, but seeing none, thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate your presentation. And
thank you very much.
Next on our agenda is item 6, information item 6C, the 2025 fourth quarter obligation report.
Hello, everybody. So we have our Q4 obligation report for FY25. This we require to be plus or minus 0%. So it's basically how did we do overall with getting our funds obligated. I will let you know that unfortunately there was about $9.4 million that were not obligated in FY25. A number of that is from the roadway program. So the complete streets table. And those are for projects like Rabbit Creek Road reconstruction, Potter Drive rehabilitation, and Mountaineer Drive. Some of the ones we've kind of already talked about having some delays based on the staffing limitations. And then from the non-motorized table, we had about $2 million in the Anchorage area-wide pathway and trails rehab or pavement replacement program that was not obligated. So that's the largest chunk there. As I mentioned earlier, this money is not lost. It's just something that we'll be able to utilize at a later date. So once we get to that point where we can use it at a later date, which is not with the 26 program, but probably with 27 or later, we'll be bringing forward recommendations on how to use that funding. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll jump over to item 6B. Next TAC meeting overview.
Yes, thank you for that. So next meeting, it looks like we'll have a few possible action items. We may have the 2026 safety targets, depending on if we can get those done in time. And then we may have a resolution of support that we're going to talk about at that time, and then maybe something with the climate action plan. We're still trying to figure out the agenda as things are moving swiftly. I did want to note that the next TAC meeting, let's see, is normally scheduled for January 1st. As the first Thursday of 2026. We will not be meeting January 1st. So more than likely what we'll be doing is moving the meeting to the 8th of January. So I just wanted to give you a heads up there. Then that's the intent. I will also try and keep you updated whether or not the main conference room is back to working order by our January meeting. We really hope it is. If not, we will probably do 170 again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Would the policy committee meeting be pushed back 2 weeks? Pushed back a week to the, that'd be the 22nd?
No, it would be just the TAC meeting pushed back.
Okay.
The policy committee would stay where it's at on the 15th.
Member Bab, question?
Just a quick question. You probably said this, but you said a recommendation of support possibly on the action items. Did you say what that recommendation would be on?
Resolution of support for an item. No, we haven't finished it yet. So I didn't really want to talk too much about it until we had that completed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any other member questions or comments? Okay, any comments from the public on this item? Okay, that moves us out of the 6 information items and into number 7, any committee comments? Any members of the committee who would like to share comments? Go ahead, Member White.
So just a heads up to everyone that our request for proposals has been released for our wildlife corridor plan from on the Glen Highway. Basically, it's Airport Heights all the way up to the Parks Y. So we're going to try and get a consultant on board to help us out with exploring issues with large mammals crossing the road in front of vehicles. So we've got some historic traffic data that indicates we've got some hot spots where they tend to migrate across the Glen Highway more often than not. And so we're going to look at that and hopefully come up with some possible recommendations for future construction projects that will help us get large animals off our road. So we're going to be coordinating a lot with not only AMATs and you all here, but we're trying to form a team that will help us get this plan moving forward. So this is kind of just your heads up. Some of you all will be pinged to join our team and help us get this thing moving. So we're hoping to have the proposals in sometime in January. We'll review those and get a consultant on board early spring. And then.
And I'm sorry, what section of the road was it again?
So we're looking at the Glen Highway all the way from Airport Heights out to the Parks.
Okay.
Glen Y interchange out there. So we got 2 years. It's a federal grant. So we've got 2 years to get this wrapped up. So
that's a lot of road.
Okay, thanks, Member White. Any other members? Go ahead, Member Bab.
I just wanted to give a quick update on the downtown streets engineering study, the right-of-way management study. The downtown streets engineering study is still in progress. We are approaching a final draft that we will be circulating sometime in the next couple of months. And then for the right-of-way management study, we are approaching a final draft on the parking piece of that study. It was broken up into the parking and the snow and ice. And the parking study is probably going to go out for review and comment again in the next few months. Of course, our schedules are dependent on staff and availability and everything, but both of those are moving forward still.
Okay, thanks, Member Babbitt. It looks like Member Rudolph online has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. Just one quick comment. We are holding a public meeting next Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30. The Assembly has amended our budget to add an additional day for seniors to ride free. So we're trying to choose which weekday that'll be. So if anybody wants to weigh in on that decision, our public meeting is next Thursday, and information's on our website. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Member Rudolph. Go ahead, Member Kohoff.
Just a couple updates. We have, PM&E has hired a project administrator to support our project manager, Tanya Hong. Let's see, his name is Robert Kinnair, and he is starting January 5th, and we will be looking forward to the additional support. A lot of great things have been happening since we've had Tanya on board. We're getting caught up with a lot of our ATPs and our appropriations. So it's been really welcome to have additional support in our AMATS project world for PM&E. The other thing I just wanted to share, I was sitting in my car waiting to hear the end of the segment. It was 1A Jen White, Vision Zero. So if you guys can go back and look at it from NPR radio, I think it's always valuable to hear what is conversation across the nation about Vision Zero. So I hope to find it and hear the whole thing because I only heard about half the segment, but it was quite interesting.
Today too.
Yeah,
Good.
okay. Well,
That's great. Thank you, Member Glass. Other member comments? I guess one comment that I'll make is this morning I come straight from being over at DOT, talking with being part of the group looking at the Oneida Diamond project. So thanks to DOT for that great workshop. It went really well, and I was able to answer questions that came up with regards to the AMATS perspectives that were shared with regards to Oneida Diamond, both the tip description and the purpose and need that we discussed and that the policy committee had passed. So I was able to fill in knowing that Aaron was out sick. So anyway, it was a good conversation, new ideas that hadn't come up before. It sounded like we're getting discussed. So I'm excited to see where that process goes, but it seemed like a really good story. So other member comments? Okay, we'll move then on to item 8, public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a general comment? Go ahead.
Hiland Jones with Alaska DOT. Just wanted to let everybody know, if you didn't already, we're having a public meeting for the Seward Highway and Tudor Road interchange on December 10th, 4:30 to 6:30 at the Lusek Library atrium. So we'll be presenting the project goals and just early on sort of introducing the project to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keelan. Are there any other members of the public who would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, we are now to item 9, adjournment. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Jager, second by Member Babb. We are adjourned at 2:40 p.m.
Thank you.
Snake in.
Thanks,